Good morning, everyone. Welcome to admin. Roll call.
It looks like online we have Alicia Buckholz, Jackson Lee, Melissa Fisher, Michael Lee Rimmett, Michelle Denman, Katie Fairbanks, and MCAT. In 206, we have Commissioners Strohmeyer and Vero. Yeah, Brian West, Chris Lounsbury, Annie Kathy, Ann Hughes, Terry Powers, Randy Arnold. Okay, this is going to be fun. Eric House, Jenny Zazo. See, I'm just drawing a blank because I'm nervous now. Sorry. Griffin Smith, Cindy Kennedy, Melissa.
Gordon.
Yep, Gordon.
The sheriff.
And the sheriff.
He doesn't even have a name.
And Amy Shrink. Got it. Sorry. Yes, Jeremiah Peterson and Jason. Jeremy Meter for everybody out there. Oh, Nicole Rushes also.
I think you added Billy and Nicole too.
And Billy Ayers and Nicole Rush.
And Commissioner Slotnick.
And Commissioner Slotnick.
Thank you. Any public comment on items not on the agenda? We have a 9-piece consent agenda. Anything that needs to be pulled out or discussed separately?
Just note, apparently, item 7, that the Beavers are arguing once again with one another.
What?
Oh,
Conflict resolution for the Beavers. Yeah, but they just can't get along. Eyeing at each other. I would move that we approve the consent agenda in that.
okay. Any further discussion or public comment? All in favor? Aye. Okay, Ken Marshall.
Let's see, Ken, so you might want to.
Okay, maybe we'll jump to Brian West.
Commissioners, I have 2 items today. The first is to request to approve the master relationship agreement with NICE Systems Incorporated. NICE Systems Incorporated is the software vendor who will provide the evidence management system for my office and will allow our case management system to interface with the explosion of data that we basically have to deal with for evidentiary purposes. The contract will run for an initial 3-year term, starting with $90,000 in the first year, just over $97,000 in the second, and $108,000 for the third year. This is approved as part of your last budget round.
Okay.
Do this.
Any further discussion or public comment? All in favor? Aye. You get the next one.
Okay, all right. Second item. Second item is a discussion about whether or not the county would like to accept the ACLU's offer to represent us pro bono in the Casey Perkins v. State of Montana case. A couple of weeks ago, the county commission approved our office to either bring our own lawsuit against the state of Montana regarding House Bill 121, that's going to be the bathroom bill, or to join into the lawsuit. We have discussed joining in with the ACLU of Montana's litigation director, Alex Raitt. And the ACLU is offering to represent the county pro bono and take us on as a plaintiff in the lawsuit. I think speaking generally, looking at the ACLU, having done a number of rounds with the state of Montana over these same sort of matters and issues over the past few legislative sessions, they have a lot of expertise in the area. And we see a lot of value in joining in under basically their umbrella. The offer again is to represent the county pro bono. There will be no cost to us unless there were some sort of sanctions or fees issued by the court for noncompliance, something that we would never foresee happening in this certain situation. Should the plaintiffs in the matter, which would likely include us, prevail, then the ACLU and Legal Voice, the 2 current firms handling this matter, will ask for attorney's fees, and were attorney's fees to be awarded, they would go back to them to reimburse them for the costs. But speaking with Matt about this case matter, we view joining in under the ACLU and Legal Voice existing litigation and working with them directly probably the most effective route towards representing the county's interest in the matter. The secondary ask in this action item is to designate Chris Lounsbury as the Chief Executive Officer as a Rule 30b-6 designee, which basically means that he would be the point of contact for the county if we proceed forward with accepting the ACLU's offer, and then on down the line, looking towards discovery, providing information to the lawyers and to responding to the state of Montana's requests.
Griffin, this is when you should ask questions.
Oh, our reporter Andy Tallman.
Have Andy reach out to me if she needs.
Thank you.
I move that we approve authorization to retain ACLU.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion or public comment? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.
I'm just going to ask for a second motion to designate Chris Sonsberry as the Rule 30B6 designee, which just takes care of it for today.
Do the designation for Chris.
Second.
Further discussion, public comment? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, another.
All the hats.
I got a big head. How much?
We have a few letters. Thing that's of interest.
Nicole Bush on if you have any questions.
Sorry. Hi, Nicole. Anything you want to add?
Sure. Good morning, commissioners. Sorry, I can't turn on my camera for some reason. Yes, we have 2 letters to the Department of Commerce just requesting extension on 2 of our BSTF contracts, one for Thomas and one for DJ&A. In both cases, we're just asking for additional time to fulfill the terms of the contract and complete their hiring plan.
Great.
And then the third letter is a letter of support for Mountain Line's application for federal funding. This is similar to the letters you've done in the past related to the electric bus program. And so this one is both for buses themselves, charging infrastructure, and other pieces that Mountain Line might need.
Discussion items. Okay, now the fun stuff.
Ken, roll.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, thanks. I don't see Ken yet.
Postpone it.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Thanks, Sammy. What do we want? Grants.
More seats at the table.
That should be enough for each one. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present our budget enhancement requests. Aaron and Cindy and I will be covering our requests and are happy to take questions at any point in time here. So the first request is for an existing grants administrator position. The total amount of the request for FY26 and ongoing is $98,360. And that is all personnel. And the objective behind this request is to retain existing grants administrator position in the county funds section. This position is funded with ARPA through June 30th of this year. And Chris, feel free to chime in if you'd like, but the proposed funding source for FY26 and beyond would be the financial admin fund. And deliverables for this position include managing the annual competitive application processes for $1.2 million in county funds, overseeing all contracts and projects funded through the Substance Abuse Prevention Mill Levy, the Alcohol Tax Fund, the Mental Health Fund, and the ARPA contract with the Temporary Safe Outdoor Space. And just a note, the personnel costs for the position have been built into the base budget for FY26. So that's that one. Any questions on that? Okay. And Aaron and Cindy are going to go over the next 2 requests, and they are for new FTE, which might seem an unusual thing to do when the budget is tight. But I feel like the timing for these requests is really good because the grant landscape is changing. And in order to really prepare for changes and take advantage of opportunities, we need professional grant staff. These are both revenue generating positions. So one position has an internal focus, and that would be to help county departments successfully acquire and manage grants and to provide them with support that does not exist right now. The other position has both an internal and a community orientation, and that position is responsible for applying for funding opportunities that we know will be available this fall, and then managing some of Erin's current grant administration, or taking on some of the grant administration duties so that she can focus on developing the internal grant service division. I think that, there is there's kind of a lot of confusion around grant funding right now, and there certainly will be changes to both formula and competitive grants, but there will also be a lot of opportunities. And in order to take advantage of those, you will need people who can find the opportunities and then prepare really competitive grant applications, because we're already hearing from some departments that grant opportunities that they have been successful with in the past, they're receiving less funding. So we can provide our services and help the county be more successful in acquiring external funding. But I will turn it over to Erin, and she'll talk about the first request.
Thanks, Melissa, and thank you all for having us here today. We're excited to talk about our programs. So I am going to be talking about our grant administrator request for the Internal Grant Services Division, which is our new title. Thanks, Dave. And our fiscal year 26 request is for $67,275,000. Some of that's personnel, some of it's operations. Our objective will be to create a dedicated FTE to launch this internal grant services division that we have just started dipping our toe in the water. So the start date for this person would be October 1st, 2025. Our deliverables would be providing customized comprehensive grant services to county departments, identify funding sources, and utilize expertise to maximize the county's ability to successfully acquire and manage grants, create countywide grant inventory, public-facing grant dashboard, centralized grant information hub for county departments, and play a key role in implementing coordinated grant support team work plan. So I know that you've heard a lot about this division, and we've talked about my plan for the next year pretty much, but just as a reminder, our origin story, this request came out of several years of planning within the department and coordinated grant support team, which is the group of 14 members from 10 different county departments. And then we also subsequently had a 2022 stakeholder, we did an internal report, but as part of that, our consultant did stakeholder interviews that showed that county departments want to be able to utilize our assistance to maximize their capacity to acquire and manage grants. And there was this desire for helpful tools and processes that don't currently exist, and some coordination of efforts and support across the grant life cycle. So this was started as a result of that, along with the work from the coordinated grant support team. So in 2025, the coordinated grant support team did finalize their goals and deliverables work plan, although the implementation of that really depends on additional staff to make that happen. And then I filled the division manager position, and we created our work plan, but same thing, we just to be successful, it will really depend on having another person. So what is internal grant support? I think we've also talked about this in depth, but just as a reminder, it's our new internal service for all county departments, kind of similar to the county attorney, and Brian's still in here. But we would be taking a systems level approach to be more effective at grant acquisition and grant management. There's different things that are happening right now that makes this especially timely. And that's Workday coming on board, which will really complement the work of this position. The coordinated grant support team that has laid a great foundation for this work. And then the new website that
Carrie's working on, which can also really help the work that we have going on. So why do we need another FTE? Right now, I currently just have 16 hours of my week that's dedicated to this. We would like to expand on that. We did the grant inventory pilot project, which really found, provided some really interesting information, and we would love to expand on that. And it's just a building block position. So we really feel that it's foundational to the county's success with grants, and especially with compliance issues and things like that. So last question is, why now? Aren't grants going away? Answer is no, they're not going away. Funding will still be available, but it's going to be harder to find, and the competition is going to be harder than ever. So we, the free range approach that's been used in the past is just not going to work.
Free range.
I think that came from Melissa, so I give her credit.
To trademark that.
So we really need grant experts to find the opportunities and to help make competitive applications. And also having dedicated staff that will work with the different departments to know what their needs are, as well as the needs of the commissioners, is also part of the plan. So the last thing I'll note is that this model is in line with the best practices approach that was outlined in a recent NGMA, which is National Grant Management Association webinar on how to thrive in this changing grant landscape. So this webinar was conducted by national consultants. It noted that the direction of federal funding is for strategic grant writing and compliance, increased demand for grant management expertise, and increased competition for limited funding, as we mentioned. But it also highlighted that key ways to enhance this, the grant management process, is that we need ideas that mirror our proposed work plan. We need hybrid or centralized grant coordination. We need standardization and efficiency. We need performance and transparency, professional development, which also training is a part of our plan, and developing a funding strategy. So all these things we can address with an additional staff, at least one additional staff person. And I think that's basically it. I mean, so basically we're on target with what we've heard from other departments and in line with national best practices. So
And it's fair to say that a third of the county's revenue comes from grants.
yeah.
Right? I mean, is that fair?
Yes, I would say that's probably true, although we have not done our full grant inventory, which is going to hopefully happen this year. And, one thing we've talked about with the grant inventory in general is that we wish we had done it 5 years ago, so that we could have seen, how ARPA funds really impacted it, and now what's happening. It's going to ebb and flow, but our hope is that we can keep that support going so that we don't face that ARPA cliff that we've discussed previously, then that we can kind of minimize impacts to the county financially.
That's great.
Any questions on that?
Thank you.
Cindy's
Thanks.
next.
Yes, Cindy Kennedy, Cindy with an S, the fastest online. Thank you for allowing us to present our budget enhancement request. So we are also asking for another grant administrator for the federal and state grants section. And this request would be $49,330 for FY26, and that includes mostly personnel and then some operation costs. The objective is that this would allow us to backfill an FTE deficit in the federal and state grants section, which will allow us to pursue and manage new funding. The start date would be January 1st, 2026. The deliverables would be Missoula County is in a position to apply for $2.5 million in upcoming CDBG and EPA grant funding opportunities. An additional grant administrator will allow the division to meet existing grant management obligations for the HART and Crisis Diversion Grants, which is $1.86 million and 9 contracts, and to manage new CDBG grants and projects. The ongoing annual cost is estimated to be $98,360 beyond 2026. I just want to share that the funding opportunities that are available to us include grant administration support. That means that the personnel costs in the federal and state grants section will be partially covered by these grants by up to $602,000 from FY26 through FY28. And the Grant and Community Resources Department is the only county department that has the requisite expertise to apply for and manage these grants. No other county department is equipped to go after this funding. Just kind of reiterating what Melissa and Aaron have already said, we have the grant professional background where we have the expertise, and there's 3 of us that have gone through significant CDBG training, and it's a heavy lift.
Cindy, do you have explaining about this? The personnel costs would be partially offset? by the
Yes.
602?
Yes. Yes, so that's
Just kind of
2.
unpack that a little bit.
So all of these grants include that we're proposing, considering, or applying for, have administrative costs or allowable expenses
Okay.
in those grants. So for instance, CDBG is 10% of those grants. So that's, I'll get to the numbers, but what did I say? That was 2.5 million. So just the CDBG alone, we can use 10% of that for admin personnel costs.
Okay, so the more successful we are, the less the financial burden is on the county for paying this. position.
Correct, yes. And same with brownfields with EPA, we can use a portion of that. We use 8 to 10% of that grant as well to
Right.
offset personnel costs.
Great. And in the past, that's worked out well for us.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's been a great pattern.
Thanks.
Yep.
Cindy, how would this work? Because presumably the position that we just talked about, the internal grant services grants administrator, as that individual's looking for grant opportunities or working with internal departments, might find a federal grant. And now we have this other federal and state grants effort, and this grants administrator would, if the internal grant services person finds a federal grant and secures it, would it then move over here, or how does that?
So the Internal Grant Services Division will have a totally new and different function than this grant administrator within the federal and state section. So this is similar to work that we have previously done and will continue to do. So when there is a funding opportunity where the county is the only eligible applicant, the grant does not naturally fit in another department, and takes usually a really high level of expertise with all the federal regs. And typically we have a community partner who is actually implementing the program services construction project. This section goes after that funding, which has been community development funding. So it's getting CDBG grants in every category, which we have the opportunity to apply for again this fall, and getting home grants, getting the crisis diversion grant, the HART grant, and then we manage them internally. What the position under Aaron will do is support county departments broadly with acquiring and managing grants. We would not be taking those grants in-house to manage them. So, and feel free to add, Cindy or Aaron, if I'm not making any of this clear, because it's just nuance. So this is an internal function we're applying for and managing these grants within GCR. Aaron's section or division will be helping all county departments manage and acquire grants, but we won't be taking obligation for those because the administration that comes with these grants comes with time tracking requirements. So if you get a CDBG grant, there you are accounting for 20 hours a week of your time necessarily. You do time tracking and submit to the funder. So we reach a maximum productivity level for existing staff. And in order to continue to take advantage of opportunities that are out there, we need people who have free space to manage those grants. The challenge with this section is that we don't go under contract for these grants in alignment with the county budget year or budget cycle. So, and you've heard this from me before, we end up having to ask for county tax dollars to cover positions that during the course of the year will be partially covered with external grant funds that we're not yet under contract for. Case in point, the Missoula Children's Theater project, Kayla Talbot is the lead for that. She, in the budget, will look to be 100% funded with county tax dollars, yet we know we will receive $44,000 in admin during the year. So it's kind of, with all these requests, they are planning for the future. They are positioning the county to take advantage of opportunities in the future. And we need, and as I said before, they are revenue generating. In this section, the grants will support the positions. In Erin's section, she will enable other county departments to bring in grants that have admin money and support positions more broadly. That was a really long answer.
Thank you.
Great. And just to reinforce what Melissa said with CDBG in particular is we're working with community partners. These grants, like Missoula Children's Theater, Buena Vista, the Poverello, the YWCA, these are all projects that had CDBG funding in them. And they're not, it makes sense that we're the experts in the room that have a lot of experience with these funds and that we're going after those grants and managing them. So it's a little bit, it's different, obviously. It's not an apples to apples comparison to the kind of grants that other departments are getting in the county. So as Melissa said, this is a revenue generating position, and it is necessary for GCR to pursue new funding opportunities that are coming online within the next 9 months. And if we are able to apply for these grants, if we are unable to apply for these grants, it will be a missed opportunity for the county, not only in terms of maintaining grant revenue, but importantly, missing opportunities to support much needed county projects like Sealy Lake wastewater, Old Hellgate Village wastewater, housing rehab for LMI, low to moderate income households. And so what we're proposing applying for, we could apply for 2 CDBG public facilities grants that would amount to $1.5 million. We could apply for a CDBG housing stabilization grant, or also known as housing rehab, up to $500,000. We could also be eligible to apply for a planning grant, a CDBG planning grant for $50,000. And an EPA brownfields grant for $500,000. And personnel within the federal and state sections are supported partially with tax dollars, as we've already talked about, and then partially with external grant admin funding. And to reiterate, a lack of FTE will result in missed opportunities to access external funding in support of county priority projects. Any more questions?
Just one last word about the 2 requests. I know that in a tight budget situation, there are services and projects and programs you absolutely have to fund. And then there are services, projects, programs you would like to fund. I feel like these positions will be helpful in enabling you in the future to think creatively beyond the mandated services and programs that the county has to provide by bringing in external funds to support them. To belabor that, but I really strongly believe in it. Okay, and then the final request is for $10,000 as a contracted services line item. And the objective with this request is to be able to utilize firms with specific technical expertise needed to enhance the department's ability to meet county objectives. And deliverables, this would be grant writing assistance for highly technical or specialized grant applications, a communications expert to develop tools and messaging to support the new internal grant services role, and a data analyst to collect and analyze data and create reports to inform decisions and guide strategies. So examples of when we would need specialized technical assistance would be for an infrastructure project or a construction project. The EPA brownfields application is an example of when we need an environmental professional. And then with communications and public relations, we will absolutely utilize county staff to the fullest extent of their abilities. But with the work that Erin is doing, it's going to be really important that we have really clear and easy, intuitive tools for departments to use and to follow throughout the grant life cycle. And it may be that we need to contract externally for that assistance. And then data analyst, we conduct the annual community needs assessment that we receive really good response to. We currently analyze all that data in-house, and I think we do the best that we can, but it would be helpful to work with someone on that and on other projects so that the county can make informed decision about funding. So that is it.
Yeah, if you all don't mind, just if I may say a word about one of these requests especially, I'm sure they're all great, but one of them especially is the coordinated grant support ask. I think that's especially important, and I'm really glad that Aaron is kind of on board the team, just an incredibly important part of the team. We started this coordinated grant support team really because, as you all know, not only does the grants division work in a lot of grants where we have so much expertise on grants, but there are grants spread out over the whole county where we have a lot of expertise in a lot of things. And sometimes the grant expertise maybe isn't there just because it can't be, because they're experts on other things. And as Melissa said, these federal regulations, which are a lot, they're hard to follow sometimes, and they're getting worse, right? I don't want to say worse, but there's a lot more regulations as we go depending on the administration. So I think having support for all departments to be able to know not just how to get grants, which is wonderful, and I'm all, especially as we're worried about, our kind of taxing situation, the idea of getting revenue in other places is very, very important. And so I think that's a big plus. The other big plus that I always think about as county auditor is risk management, not risk avoidance, but risk management. And we want to make sure that our annual audits that are completed by an external auditor and are then submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse don't show any problems, because all federal funders look at that Federal Audit Clearinghouse to see if there are any issues with Missoula County. And we want to remain as incredibly competitive as we are and continue to be able to do grants. And I think that is a big piece of the puzzle, is that particular FTE. So it is money well spent, not only for risk, but again, I think it will increase the amount of grant revenue and more than pay for itself, in my opinion. I think it's a great ask.
How would you prioritize these?
Yeah. Well, retaining the existing position is the first. And then if we get someone, I think I would do kind of a mishmash of thinking about the two specific FTE that are being requested. My first priority is to retain existing staff. Second would be to free up all of Aaron's time to focus on internal grant services. So that's kind of, the third request that you heard is tied to that. And then I would want to get really creative in looking at, okay, someone's taking on Aaron's responsibilities. What else can that person do? That person will be able to apply for the grants that Cindy mentioned, and then Aaron would be free to really develop systems of support for county departments and start moving in that way. So that's not a great answer. It is that if we can get one new FTE, I would look at the most components in both of the new FTE requests. And
So if you could just get one FTE, it would not be either of these. It would be an amalgam of both.
yeah, yep, we'd want to free up Erin so that she can help other county departments go after grants. And we would want to have capacity to apply for and manage all of the funding opportunities that we know are coming our way this fall.
Andrew Charney has a question. Do any of the new grants offset actual county department expenses? Not just the outside agencies, YMCA, et cetera, grants and grants management?
Yeah, so maybe Melissa can talk to him afterwards, because we're already.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I would just say real quickly, the grant admin comes to the county, not to the subrecipients.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Hey, Sheriff, Clothing line. Oh, and detention. Sorry, I didn't see that there's two.
Cheryl's doing detention online.
Okay,
Cheryl's doing,
Yeah, I think Amy's gonna speak to.
yeah.
okay.
Come on up.
Please.
Okay, thank you for allowing us to present today. So the sheriff's office is looking for a $10,000 increase in our clothing line for FY '26. With the allowed clothing, with the clothing allowance, we are already exceeding with our current budget. The amount that's in our line right now for FY '25, we're already past that with what's allowed. So we have special teams, which is $600 per deputy. And then we have also just the annual allowance of $1,200 per deputy. So we are at our capacity right now. We're at 59 and we're looking to hire one more. Yeah. So we've already exceeded that in 1 year. So we're looking for that $10,000 increase, which will bring us to the 92 here. So $92,582. We're currently at $82,582. So that doesn't even include, so we have honor guard as well. And then we also have our badges that we're required to purchase each year. So
So is this, these are items that I'm assuming are outlined in like collective bargaining agreements and such. So we kind of need to do what we were agreeing to do.
yes,
100%.
yes, you got it. So that's all I
Thank
have
you.
to present with that unless you guys have any other questions.
Easy.
So we did have one that didn't make the agenda just because we've worked up some last minute numbers. So one of the things we're going to ask for is $6,000 to go towards a project for mental health of the deputies. So one of the things we've looked at is having mandatory wellness for deputies. So every year they have to have a 30-minute session with a culturally competent counselor. And part of the sheriff's and I's agenda with this is we're trying to treat mental health injuries just like we would a physical injury. And, you know, they see things, death, nonstop, all throughout the year. And if they just have the opportunity to talk to somebody and it's mandatory, so there's no stigma behind it, this just becomes part of their natural deal. I think if we deal with some of those problems up front when they're small problems, it prevents them from being a 12-year guy that has a bunch of this stuff stacked up and that costs us a lot more to try to correct. So we have met with the company. Actually, they service several other departments. We've met with them. We just received a contract from them. So the cost to do all the deputies would be $6,000, and that would get all of them to do it once a year.
Deal.
Cheap. And so, you know, we were like, well, let's try the program and, you know, take it out of cash reserves and kind of see how it works. Because then, you know, long-term planning, we might incorporate the jail. It might be that some of the, you know, a standard deputy goes every other year, where coroners you know, they have to go every year and kind of work through that, but we don't know what we don't know. So that was kind of a starting point. And by starting off with every one of them going, it's not like, well, why are you going?
Yeah,
You know, it's just, it becomes a standard that they all know that, hey, I need to go see this person, and they schedule it out throughout the whole year. So everybody knows what their schedule is, and it just becomes part of the normal.
So this first trial year would be a one-time expense.
Yep. And then I think from there, we would have a much better idea of what we're looking at long-term.
Yeah, it's on the one-time list, not the ongoing, the ones you guys have on here and there.
We have brought up peer support, or it has been brought up to us, and we've certainly tried fairly hard the last couple of years to implement that. And that's a challenge because we really need buy-in from deputies to do it. It can't be an administrator because that's how we started it. And then, of course, nobody wants to come, nobody wants to talk. And we hear that it's needed, but getting them to follow through, and that's what I've tried to, you know, to empower them. Like, you guys and gal need to really spearhead this. We will support it however we can, because mental health is super important, right? This isn't who they are. This is just the job they do. And we want them to be competent, normal citizens when they're not here protecting our citizens. So it's super important to us. And like Jeremy already said, just to reiterate, we want to catch it on the front end because we all know on the back end that expense is high, and sometimes sadly, the work that we do ruins people's lives. It does. And Jeremy and I have seen it over our 20+ years here, that, we all get into it, I think, with great intentions, but unfortunately, sometimes people can't cope with things, how we need to. And so they leave much worse off than when they started.
And impact families and loved ones and everyone around them.
100%. So.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
And I think Cheryl.
Detention, oh, Cheryl, sorry. Hey,
Hi,
Cheryl.
good morning. Hey, I apologize for not being there in person. We're having a little office juggle situation at MCDF. If you haven't heard, we had a massive plumbing leak that took out the administrative office spaces. So we're all kind of scrambling for workspace at this point, and I drew the remote card. So good morning. Good morning. I have 2 requests that I'd like to talk to you about. The first I'd like to discuss is an additional FTE for our kitchen. So our kitchen staff has sort of been running a bit skeleton really since its opening. We don't currently have the staffing coverage to actually cover vacations, holidays, sick leave, etc. We run all of that on overtime. And primarily our kitchen manager gets hit with the bulk of that because most of the kitchen cooks are sort of, lower level employees don't really want the overtime. And so Chris Rodriguez, who you all have met, ends up taking the bulk of that. And he is getting a little bit burnout on that. And I can certainly understand and respect that. He wants some time for his family and for his life outside of the jail. Appreciate his dedication, but I think it's time for us to support him, give an additional FTE so that he doesn't have to cover that. To give an example we're down 1 FTE right now, or we have a vacancy, I should say, and that leaves 28 shift openings in the next 3 months, June, July, and August, that he would have to cover himself. We just don't have the staffing to support routine vacancies. So I would ask for an additional FTE to bring that staffing level up to a sustainable level.
And what is that amount?
Amy, I'm really hoping you can help there.
Oh, sorry, Amy.
We might have to get Micah or Michelle to look at OpenGov. Sorry. Or if Michelle's got it up, or if Micah's on, or she's not on.
Yeah, Micah's
Amy.
not on. We're still going through our conversion of OpenGov, so.
I'm here, actually.
I believe it's around 75, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I am here.
That's Micah.
Oh, hi, Micah. Thanks, Micah.
Hello, but I'm not helpful, unfortunately, because my battery died on my laptop, so I'm on my phone. So although I'm here, I'm not actually helpful, but let me pull it up on my email and get back to you guys in just a minute. I'll put it in the comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
I apologize for not having that number. Again, the remote has disrupted my world a tad bit for this morning. The second item is an ask for $27,019 for a proposed increase in staffing for our PA. Now, this is a WellPath position, and I certainly understand sort of the expense of that contract already. WellPath would support a small increase for Kelly, the individual, the PA in this position currently. We don't believe that it's sufficient for the market, in Missoula, and for the work that Kelly does for us. So Kelly's been with our agency throughout 2 different vendors now. She started with MCDF in 2019. And she has stuck. She is the type of employee that we would love to retain, that we would love to keep. She's got great relationships with our staff. She cares about this inmate population. She advocates for them where it's appropriate. She has a great balance that I haven't seen in previous providers between protecting the county or her contractors' interests and actually advocating for what inmates need. She goes above and beyond in that respect. Her pay is currently sort of commensurate with what you'd see a PHC PA making, but she's on call 24/7. She doesn't get breaks. Nursing calls her all night long. If she does take a vacation, they do have some remote coverage for her, but Kelly's that that individual that would prefer to take that call herself. They're her patients. She takes ownership of them. And I would really just like to see us reward her. Now, I get that, again, that this is already a large contract. I would point out that in the way that we structured this contract, under this next 5-year agreement, we set some amounts for capped costs. That we sort of anticipated would be the costs for medical offsite, for pharmacy, for some of those other expenses that are in addition to the fixed costs. We did that for some budget predictability. We have made some efforts and strides in prescription refunding and in reducing offsite that has actually resulted in some refunds to the county for what we have paid out to WellPath. So far in this fiscal year, those have amounted to $282,000. So we are getting more back than I am asking for in increase pretty substantially at this point. And I suspect that that will continue through the life of this contract as we continue to make efforts to drive those external costs down and find ways to capture what's owed to us by outside agencies. We're doing just a much better job at figuring that out and going after those folks, making them pay for their own.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The kitchen staff is 76,282.
Thanks, Micah.
I was close, off by 1,000.
Okay, anything else? Questions for Cheryl? Okay, this is great. And way to find $250,000 of refunds.
I shall continue the quest.
Okay, parks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank
Oh, I
you.
was like, Randy was here. Now you were hiding.
I was hiding.
Hiding, okay.
Thanks for coming over. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you need one?
All right, good morning. So Jenny and I will be giving a quick presentation on our budget request for the Open Land Specialist FTE. So for context, I wanted to talk a little bit about our Open Lands Division, just a reminder of what's already with that division and what Jenny's responsible for. So under that Open Lands Division, which is one of the divisions under the Lands, Culture, and Recreation Department, we have one employee, Jenny, manager of that program. And a little bit of the current day-to-day work. So the kind of the core responsibilities of that division are the administration of the 2006 and 2018 open space bond funds. So that's everything involved with that bond management around pre-application consultation when somebody has a project that they want to propose for funding, through working through the initial application process and ultimately getting that to the Board of County Commissioners for approval. And then the post-application and securing that funding with the coordination of the disbursement and the reimbursement allocation of the funds and helping with closing. There's also coordination with the city on city-led open space bond projects as well as joint projects, which turns out to be a lot of work. Jenny is coordinating, and previously Kaylee coordinated with the city every time they were using open space bond projects. So that's helping them administer those funds and get approval process on the county side, but also helping them with their closing and all of their processes. This position is also responsible for the management and the care and feeding of our Open Land Citizen Advisory Committee. So that's through those bond fund applications and presentations and consideration of those applications. But those site tours that you guys have attended, some of those, but then they also coordinate those site tours for those for the members of that advisory committee. And also supports that advisory committee on their subcommittee work. And some of the work that they're working on right now is the Good Neighbor Handbook and taking on that project, as well as the Land Stewardship Award, which you'll be hearing about this cycle's awardee. It's the maintenance of those processes that committee is responsible for. This position is also responsible for assisting lands, culture, and recreation, and lands and communities more broadly on acquisition of lands or interests. So some examples in the past couple of years is the acquisition of Marshall Mountain Park. So when the county took that on, Kaylee played a principal role in the acquisition of Marshall Mountain and helping in that. Kaylee and now Jenny's looking at similar projects now, helping with things like rights of way. If you remember the Paul Rosignol's dedication of that Lola Riverside Trail easement, those types of projects where over time, the person in this role develops a suite of skill sets and professional expertise around these subject areas and becomes a really easy go-to for helping add to any other project, whether that's a park-related project or a trail project. It's an extra hand to help administer those and get them to the process. So the Open Lands Division is also responsible for applying for and managing grants for some of our partners. Some wonderful examples are the DNRC grant that supports Trout Unlimited's work and the 9 Mile Creek reclamation work that they've done. Turns out to be a lot of grant administration. They couldn't apply for that grant. The county could. We were the recipient of that, and then we subbed that to Trout Unlimited. And it requires regular feeding and administration and reporting to the granting agency, and then site tours and maintenance of that grant with those partners. That's just one example of grants that we've supported with those natural resource. This role is also helping partners apply for grants. So when multi-agency partners around and non-agency partners apply for things like state WIP grants or forest resiliency grants, this role is in a really great position to help coordinate across that and provide capacity. And the natural resource, or this Open Lands Division, is also responsible for a lot of the natural resource related policy coordination and planning. And I want to be clear, it's not the only place this lives in Missoula County, as you also have the grants division working on that. Planning is certainly responsible for that, ecology and extension. But this role is in a great coordinating role across those different departments and helping make all that go really well. But directly are serving internal coordination processes as well as external. So for us, Jenny is serving on our Lolo National Forest planning process with our cooperative agency status and supporting that effort. So as the county prepares to participate in that Lolo planning process, Jenny is on the lead for helping coordinate those comments and making sure that we can keep up with the meetings and know what's actually coming at us. So that's the day-to-day kind of core responsibilities. What we see coming at us in the coming years are what we see as program growth and new opportunities. One of those is the Small Ag Land Conservation Program. And I've asked Jenny, and she's done a nice job laying out what does that sequentially look like, because I know that this has been of interest for a long time. And Jenny's revisit to that Small Ag program is a little bit of a refresh on where are we in taking that program on. And we're currently at a point where we believe the nuts and bolts are finalized. This is a project or program that can happen. We see the legal pieces and the underpinnings, but there's a lot of questions that remain. So this next step is stepping into that partner coordination, outreach. It's about sequential or layers of outreach to partners to understand what are we missing? Do we have the capacity? Where don't we have the capacity? It's not without some concern. This program could be all-consuming. There's a lot of potential growth in it and a huge need in the community, but we also want to make sure we don't step into that without having fully vetted, like, before we take that first step, what does that actually look like? So we're thinking in fiscal year 26, a lot of it's just communicating to partners that we're ready to take this step and also learning from them, what are we missing to make sure we get this right? In the subsequent years, fiscal year 26 and beyond, 27 and beyond, is starting to work with partners who might help hold those servitude of those agreements, and those partners making sure they're ready to receive those and understanding what that looks like for the very first one of these being a pilot program, and then learning from that and iteratively preparing to take on more. Inherent in this Small Ag program is the likelihood that with each successive project that we're successful at implementing, we're going to have a county responsibility for the maintenance and stewardship of those. Either we contract that out or the provider that helps us support those will be doing that work. But nonetheless, like our open space program, we have an ongoing interest and connection to each of those projects that we have to kind of be prepared for taking on. The other that's coming at us is the county-wide open space planning and implementations. So with the Missoula County Comprehensive Plan ongoing, there's a significant element of the open space planning portion of that. So Jenny's been coordinating closely with our planning staff around what does that look like in the coming year. And it's a fairly heavy lift on actually doing open space planning and outreach on where is the open space plan or program going. And then it's also being available for additional resource capacity. So the Good Neighbor Handbook was one example, but also looking for and seeking out new funding mechanisms for parks and trails and open space projects. We see a lot of potential as was in the previous presentation, the grant landscape has changed, but it's not that it's gone. And so we think that Jenny's role is well prepared for helping seek out those additional resources. So I think what the request is really about, this Open Land Specialist FTE, financially, it's a $99,532 request. It is a single FTE. It doubles the Open Lands program from 1 to 2. But what it comes from is just this sense of capacity concern. That first page of work, that day-to-day program, is a full-time job. And as we start taking on these opportunistic and at times discretionary additional stuff, it becomes a really fun, engaging job. And we'd love to jump into these new areas, but we start to worry about whether we have the capacity to do that. At any given time, while Jenny and previously Kaylee could be engaged in multiple projects happening, all of a sudden you get 3 open space bond projects that come through at the same time, and everything else gets set aside. You just can't move that project at all because you have these time-sensitive rigors and process already in place. You just can't get both done at the same time. So we're looking to expand the program so that Jenny can focus her attention on these core responsibilities and keep moving those bigger pieces. And this would be a support position across all these arenas. We're not clear exactly, if we were to be successful in getting this position, whether we would capture a specific role for that person. Like, this is definitely just their work. More likely they would support Jenny and the county across multiple spaces as their expertise allows.
Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
How long have we
Only
been?
like 3 minutes left. We'll go ahead. I'm like, the questions I don't want to ask are required like discussion than 3 minutes.
I'm just excited, the small ag grant, we've been talking about it
Beaten up
for like
forever.
12 years. And, okay,
If it's
let's
not-
do it before
Yeah, I feel like if
the
it's-
soil is gone.
It's not going to be us, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And also think that it isn't ours entirely to do. And you mentioned contracting for monitoring. There's lots of expertise out there that we could partner up with, but obviously we need to spearhead the project.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for your conciseness. Nailed it.
Yeah, vote.
Good job, but I was like.
Too many years at the legislature.
Did really well, right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you all.